So, Tommy Johnson, thank you for joining me on the Cardo Vodka.
It's good to be here, Mr. Brandon Barnett.
Right.
I'm always glad to be here with you.
So, it's funny. It's a video podcast now. So it's a vodcast. So like hat check, 1 2 1 2. Right. Doing this in front of cameras is interesting, and having you on the show because I was too nervous to do shows on camera with you when you first asked me to.
That's true. I forgot. Yeah, that's right. You were like, oh, I can't do it. And then you were just like, oh, is everything looking good?
So I used to have a medical misdiagnosis. I was on pharmaceuticals for 15 years. You witnessed a big chunk of that, about half of it. And I had a lot of anxiety. And it was brought on by these medical pharmaceuticals that were prescribed to me.
Yeah.
Never had it before them. Had it the whole time I was on this whole array of them. Haven't had it since. So it was so great to get off of pharmaceuticals. My body straightened itself right out. Like weight fell off of me. My energy level came back. My vibrancy came back. You know, my enthusiasm towards life.
Yeah.
Night and day. And one of the great benefits was the anxiety went away.
That's a big I mean, why would you ever, like, anxiety is it could really pull you down. So any way and I think everybody has it. So any way to like get rid of some of that, just mitigate as much as you can. Isn't that worth it just about? I don't know. I mean, some people will go the other end of the spectrum. Well, they'll start taking really hardcore stuff in order to escape that anxiety. So, you know, you got to have some, right? It's like stress, right? You got to have a little bit of stress. You have to.
Yeah, everybody's got to endure a little bit of stress. Stress is there for a reason. It toughens us up. But I think that a lot of people that have severe anxiety try to self-medicate. I did. Mm-hmm. I had this whole foray into alcohol that is very out of character for me as kind of a health nut, you know? And that was always just trying to desperately balance this, like desperately needing to balance these chemicals inside my body that were going haywire because of these super strong pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. I've never been on prescriptions. Like
Cannot recommend.
I mean, you know, just like maybe like antibiotics, but like not that, you know, that's not really going to affect you too much.
Yeah, there's a big difference. Like, let me be really clear, because I'm not one of these guys that's, you know, completely against medication. I think it exists for a reason. And you can look into the clinical trials and tell like what works and what doesn't. And there's marketing campaigns for every product in the world. So don't be turned off by that. My point is that when you're taking stuff that I'm just going to say is psychoactive, whether that's the accurate medical term or not, but anything meant to change your brain chemistry, I don't recommend getting from a pharmaceutical company.
You know, I don't think, well, it depends. Because I mean, I've obviously not been on them and you have. So there's experience there. I think whenever it comes down to like how much time you're going to be on it, like if a doctor says, why don't you try this for 6 months? That's a little bit different because the idea is always should be that for prescriptions they give you, as far as like, unless it's going to be something that if you don't have it, you're going to die, like blood thinners for somebody that has a heart problem, then it should be a thing that like you can take this for a time to help you regulate yourself, but slowly the point is to get you off of it so your body can go back to doing that. Because if, you know, unless you're taking something that literally your body stopped producing a certain chemical or something,
sure,
like insulin for people that have diabetes, then it's like, unless you have something like that, then this shouldn't be something you have long term. You should eventually be weaned off of it, right?
Yeah, I think that's always the hope. And I think that was probably, even in my personal experience, you know, truly what the doctors wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem, is in today's medical setting in the world, it's really tough to get personal care. Do you have a personal doctor?
I don't.
Do you know anybody that has like good old Dr. Jim or Jane they just go to?
Like off the top of my head, I know a lot of young people.
Right.
You can't get them out to the hospital.
Right.
So, you know, like they got a, you know, piece of rebar through their chest. They're like, is it that bad?
Put this on YouTube.
Right. Yeah.
So here's the problem. When you can't get personal care and you maybe switch jobs, switch cities, you're already just a name or a number to begin with, right? Take a number when you come in. We don't give a fuck who you are. We're treating a condition, not a patient. The problem is different doctors have different opinions and you get different diagnoses. And sometimes they can give you conflicting opinions, conflicting medications even. And at one point, they had me on like 4 or 5 things at one time. I'm on my 3rd or 4th diagnosis. I've been diagnosed everything from bipolar to autistic. Okay. And like,
I think all that's true. I think it's all correct.
Absolutely correct. Yeah. It's all of those things. But I'm standing there and my pharmacist goes, "Hey, Brandon," my pharmacist actually knows me, by the way. Hold on, I'm going to get her name right out of respect by the end of the show. But so my pharmacist actually, hey, what's up, Rand? And she goes, you're not taking these together, are you? Wait, why are these on here? These are poisonous when they're taken together. I'm like, well, that can't be true. That's like my 2 base medications that they've had me take for like 5 years. And she's like, no, I don't even want to give you. How long have you been taking these? And I'm like, 5 years. And she's like, oh my God, are you having any problems? Yeah.
You're like me, problems. What are you talking about? Is there a problem?
And this was just kind of like a recent experience. They let the guy go from the hospital that did my first arm surgery, is my understanding.
Oh, nice.
Because of the malpractice suits.
Sweet.
Tells me the guy from the second surgery, which came out just fine, same hospital, much more reputable guy. The second time, when I was in there for one of the surgeries, they collapsed my lung. I specifically requested an anesthesiologist by name because I had a business partner that was an anesthesiologist. And
sure.
People on the show have heard the spiel. They're going to lose 3 patients in their career doing everything right. So I request this guy. They don't give me my guy. This other guy shows up. They collapse my lung. I black out. I didn't know I was dead when I woke up.
If you blacked out, then he did it right, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, okay, touche.
Right?
So I haven't had good medical experiences, and I can't say good things about pharmaceuticals.
That's fair. I've had very little experience. I mean, I'm a very, if a doctor tells me something, I'll be like, yep, that sounds great. But at the same time, I've got very little experience in hospitals. I've never had to go to the ER. I've never gone in for surgery or anything.
Really?
Never. I mean, I've had experiences of me going to the hospital when I was way too young to remember. I think at one point I drank a whole bunch of hydrogen peroxide or something like that. So that's cool. But it's stuff I don't really remember. I didn't actually. So I don't have any experiences of going in and being like, oh, my arm's broken. I got to get it fixed or whatever. No experience whatsoever.
What about stitches? You were a kid.
Never.
You were a little boy. Are you serious?
Never got a stitch. No, never did.
You want to know the first time I remember laying on a hospital table getting stitched up above the neck?
Oh, yeah? Was it where?
5. I was 5. It
right
was
up there?
Yeah, nice. Right here. And if you look closely, you can see I still have a dent where the skin was missing and it was never coming back. And you can lightly see a scar, a little bigger than a pencil eraser. I was 5 and I lived in the ghettos of Long Beach, and there were scrappers, dude. I had tough ass friends, and I threw a D battery at this kid and clipped him in the cheek.
Oh boy!
And he came back at me with a spark plug.
Whoa!
Yeah, and spark plugs have a pointy end.
Yeah,
and it got me good.
That's awesome.
I was 5.
That's fun. You're 5.
I was 5.
How old was he?
I still remember the kid's name. His name was Christian, and he was 7.
I almost imagine you're I was 5, and he punched, and he hit the spark plug, and he was 28.
Yeah.
It's oh, shoot.
No, there is a story I won't tell right now, but it's funny. We told on one of the episodes where I got jacked for my skateboard. I was 10, and he was 15. And that's worlds apart.
Yeah.
It's worlds apart at that age.
That's pick you up and toss you, right?
And he was drunk, and I'm still just a little kid, and so it was just double bad, and he was gang affiliated. It was I don't know. Long Beach shit, man.
Wow, that's awesome. I don't have any experience with gangs either.
I don't think you want them, man.
Nah, it's why not? Sounds like fun.
I've known some cool ass motherfuckers that were honestly gang affiliated.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that I've had too much interaction with anybody that I need to be a killer or something like that.
Right.
But I think that the fact that gangs are popularized now through music, pop culture, movies, maybe sort of nerfs it a little. The guys that I knew were scary. They were fucking scary for real. I mean, some of them were nice.
Yeah.
That's who we bought our drugs from. But they were scary people. I mean, you didn't fuck with them. It wasn't a rap video. They would fuck you up.
Absolutely. I mean, but there's gangs came from the idea of just a group of people, right? It's just a group of people. And
this is our neighborhood.
And some of them are bad. And that's the ones you hear about. That's the ones you know about, right?
Right.
Because the others they're not going to talk about. Did you hear about that gang? Which ones? Oh, the ones that knit on Thursdays. Yeah, but it's just different, right? So
you know what's funny about that? So I'm in West Side Long Beach. I went to Long Beach Poly High School. There's all kinds of gangs there. And so we were used to stuff my buddies lived on the West Side, so West Side Long Beach. And then my brother had a house on the edge of Compton. And so we just been around these neighborhoods, and there were Bloods and Crips, and Long Beach is gang affiliated, right? There's Sons of Samoa. I got a tattoo from a guy in Sons of Samoa. They're pretty big. Anyways, all that going on, and who you had to watch out for, per my buddy, that was a big tough police officer, was Asian gents in suits in nice cars.
Oh yeah.
He's you can't pick them out as gang members, but they're triad. and they'll cut your fucking balls off and put them in your mouth. They'll disappear your ass. You don't want to, like, you're not stoked. You pull them over. And even if you do pull them over, they're going to be fucking polite to you and you're going to have no reason to search the car and you're going to let them go. But those are the guys actually running the guns, actually running the human trafficking. They just doll up, you know?
Right. Why not? I mean,
why not? Yeah. Why look gang affiliated?
All the best criminals in the country already do that.
Well, yeah, it's how they get elected as politicians.
Absolutely. That's a different thing.
That's a different thing. But to circle back around, the reason we were talking about anxiety and got on the medical topic was I had pretty severe anxiety.
Yeah, we wrapped all the way around from you being nervous on podcast to triad. To the triad.
Yeah. Welcome to the Cardo podcast.
Right.
We're going to lift the pin on 25 topics, you know? So when the anxiety went away, it was interesting. I still didn't want to make a foray into content. Like this wasn't my first choice. I would have hired somebody or worked alongside a creative professional to host all the shows I wanted to write.
Yeah.
It's just hard to find that person. And at some point you just jump in and do it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the best way to do it. It's the best way to do anything is just try it for yourself first, right? You got to try it. And then you can eventually go like, I need somebody else that has more experience. But if you try it and you're like, well, that's not awful. You just keep going, right? There's no reason to stop.
It's because I realize everybody's just a person.
Yeah.
Right. And we idolize people because we're impressed by them. And maybe, well, you should be, you know, like if you're into tennis, you've got your champions and heroes. And if you're into skateboarding, you've got your champions and heroes. And
you go to tennis first. What was that? It's like,
because it's kind of
football,
the antithesis.
You know,
I come out of action
movies.
sports. You know, solo ride sports. Like, I don't need you for anything. I'm not passing anything to anybody. Like, and I grew up playing traditional sports too, but at the end of the day, I felt like I learned so much hucking myself over concrete stairs by myself.
Yeah, I guess that tells a lot about just that. Just like because both those are just single person activities versus team activities.
All guts, no glory.
Right.
Nobody to pat you on the ass, tell you did a good job. Nobody to throw a ball to you, make an amazing play. No crowds, no audiences, except for the few times that there are, but 99.9 there isn't. It's like I had to wait till it was 10 at night to skate up to Cal State Long Beach so that the campus security wouldn't get us, so that I could go ride this like amazing set of stairs that we wanted to bust tricks on, or so I could go ride this handrail or whatever it was. Like, you had to work so hard to go do a thing with no audience, all guts, no glory. And you learn so much more from that than being naturally good at something, getting $100 million for it, and being on TV with a bunch of people sucking your dick.
Well, there's those people, but that's not the majority of people that play football or whatever, you know?
No, I know. There's a lot of stories out there, and I'm not saying that one's better than the other. I'm saying, and it's not that I had the option for any kind of fame or glory. My point is just the solo ride sports, in my opinion, are the most introspective, because how could they not be?
Yeah, that's fair.
And you're only there because you want to be, because there's nobody there egging you on, encouraging you.
I'm definitely on the opposite side of the spectrum, where it's like I think those are cool, but I'm not much of a sport person in general, but given the option, a team game is something I'm more interested in because I'm a competitive person. I like winning. When it comes to a team game, then you're, as part of a team, you can still win, but you mitigate your responsibility. If there's 10 people on your team, you theoretically only have 10% of responsibility towards that win. So It's not all on you when you fail, but no matter what, the win, it's not like you get all the glory for the win, but the win is the win, and you're part of that. And that's nice, you know, just getting that win. But you don't have all the responsibility. I mean, even if you're like 1 out of 10 players and you still got 30% of that responsibility because you're the best player or whatever, then it's still mitigated. That's still, you don't got to score every point and block every score from the opponents.
So I think that therein lies where a lot of humanity gets separated. Like, it takes a certain mindset to be a team sports player. And I respect the hell out of it. I'll make jokes because I come out of action sports, and skateboarders are, traditionally kind of snarky. Snarky's a polite way to put it, right? We're all a bunch of Jason Lees, right?
Yeah. Gotta be.
And I wasn't just a skateboarder by any means. Like, I loved anything that rolled. But my point is, if you look at team sports,
so you didn't like snowboarding then?
Yeah, I loved snowboarding.
Does that roll?
Well, You could ride it. So I say
Fair.
ride sports
There
a
you
lot.
go.
I liked anything you could ride, and I say this a lot. You know, there was always a lot of beef between surfers and surfing's where I started. I skated younger than I surfed, but I got serious about surfing before I got serious about skateboarding. So ride sports in general, but what I was getting at was that those sports that are played as teams, I can see how the beauty of assembling these talented individuals from all over the world to move in unison with a single-minded goal is a thing of beauty. Like, I understand when I see an NFL football game, there's something gorgeous being orchestrated here. I have the utmost respect for it. I joke because that's not most of football being played out there, right? I just cut jokes. I don't mean any actual disrespect though, but when I look at it, I say it this way. If I go skate in a skate contest in a really beautiful skate park that I wouldn't otherwise have access to, which just happened a couple times in my young life, and then at the end I don't win, it didn't change how much fun I had skating those bowls or hitting those ledges or trying out new rails and boxes. Like, it didn't change that. If you lose the football game and you're watching the other guys get the confetti, I don't think your ride was any good. I don't think getting run over and mowed down and crushed and your bones broken was enjoyable. You just wanted to win. So to me, it's destination versus journey mindset. I think that's where you have like police and military versus skateboarder, if you will, mindsets that you see out in society all the time. The hippy dippy woo woo they like to joke about and the jocks they like to joke about. I think that's the dividing factor. Were you playing to win? Were you playing because you're on this beautiful field you wanted to run on?
That's an interesting idea that might be. I don't know if it's that's like, you know, the divide, but that's certainly part of it, right? Because there's people that just want to enjoy themselves and the people that are out to win, you know, and it's like, that's the goal, right? Is to win. Isn't it to win? It's what you got to do. That's what we're all raised to do. If you don't have, you know, the $100,000 a year job with the house and the 2.5 kids, then you're wrong. You did it wrong and you lost.
Okay,
you know?
so I agree with you 100% that exists, but it exists as a societal pressure, I would argue.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
And
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
That's because the great generation came home from war. So for the first time ever in the history of the United States, everybody was paused and looking in the same direction and unified by media. So for the first time ever in the US, just the whole world's holding its breath in a new way to start the country with everyone home from war. So everybody bought cars and bought houses and built houses and popped out babies. And so those people's values were what got heavily ingrained in society back in the 40s, right?
Sure.
Fast forward to today. I think it's a really irresponsible decision on most people's part to have a baby. A baby costs $250,000 to raise anywhere in the United States the right way. How many million are you going to make in your career, Joe and Jane? You know that you're fast food kids. You know you're minimum wage kids. Don't bring another kid into that right now. Don't fucking do it until you're in a good position to give a kid a decent upbringing. And I would argue that it's not Joe and Jane's fault that America has been tooled down to give people monkey jobs so that McDonald's can replace you right away. I'm sorry for that. But at the same time, did you really need to bring 4 kids in under that umbrella? Can we talk about that? Because I feel like you're creating a poor environment for a family.
Sure. You know? Yeah. I mean, it's a problem. I mean, yeah, you don't want that person that doesn't have a job, you know, like the woman that doesn't have a job and then the boyfriend leaves because he's not going to take care of the kid. And then there's obligation to like raise a child now. But, you know, it's also kind of partly on us as a society that we gotta help, you know, because the other option,
totally gotta help.
That's
what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, we gotta raise that kid. Like, because isn't it going to be worse for us if that kid doesn't get raised in a way that's right? I mean, if they don't have the tools that they need and the education they need to succeed.
Yeah, hold on. Once the child's here and born, like, that's just a human being. We all got to
take care of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would just like to see there be an education level in America where people could understand exactly what it really costs to have a child. I had an interesting story from a self-made millionaire buddy of mine. I say it that way because he values money because he made it himself. He didn't inherit this money. Guy clears about $1 million a year. And he said, you know, when the pandemic hit, I got phone calls from people you wouldn't expect. And I'm thinking, yeah, you expect the unexpected in a first time ever global pandemic we're all going through in modern times, right? So that part didn't sound strange, but he said, no. He goes, I finally noticed there was a pattern to it. And that's what made it strange. It was all my friends that had kids when they really had no business having kids. and the relationships never work out because that's too much stress for most good relationships. And they're by themselves and they were fucking terrified because children are so expensive and they have legitimate needs that have to get met. And that's who was calling and kind of feeling him out for what he was doing for this lockdown thing. Because nobody has enough money. And trust me, I'm very mad at the ruling elite for that being the case. But if you know that's the case and you know where you came from and you know what your problems were growing up, why are you doing that to other humans? Why are you just making other humans? Condoms are cheap. Get fucked.
That's what they're doing. For the first part.
Yeah. But let me say this, like to circle back around, the reason that we sidewind onto those topics is because it's real easy to do so. But what you and I were discussing was winning. And while I think that it's a societal pressure that says, yeah, you got to make $100,000 a year. You got to have 2.5 children, nuclear family. You got to own that house. You got to sign up for that mortgage.
House. Yeah.
God and country. Like a lot of that is indoctrination because it benefits the people above us. Right. And a lot of that is indoctrination through the schools because of that we all just grew up with. And a lot of that is because it was those values instilled in the 40s and that generation is still alive. There's a ton of that. What I would say to you, though, is that it's always better to win if you can, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, because that's all we're here doing. Like that's all life is doing. It's a big fractal. We make little people big and then the big people make little people and we make little people big and the big people make little people. It's all just a fractal. And all life is doing, whatever it is or God is doing here, seems to be refining this code. Right? Mm-hmm. Like humans 100 years ago were not 5'10", 225. They weren't.
No.
They fucking weren't. You would have been in a circus. I'm small for a guy who pursues bodybuilding. Like I'm literally like the before picture in guys that turn it around at 40.
And I'm the before picture for you. You know?
But my point is like there are just hundreds of jacked people walking around my state. Okay. There's thousands in the country. Your average human is taller, leaner, more vascular. They carry more muscle. They're overall healthier and our life expectancy is way up. So what I would argue is that all our species does is win. And I'm not talking about Charlie Sheen winning and I'm not talking about stepping on anyone. What I mean is it's always better to be the best version of yourself, find other people that are the best version of themselves. And then that's hopefully who's breeding. And we see that because all of humanity, do you agree with me, Tommy, is just sort of tugged by the 3% that are geniuses with brilliant ideas, follow through and funding.
Well, those are the guys that are like, I mean, the ones that are absolutely the most influential and the smartest that can actually be like, hey, I figured this out. Or they've accumulated ideas from others to be, and then able to push people in that direction to be like, this is what we should be doing. And you do see it sometimes. And I'm trying to keep off the top of my head, but there are ways that it's like, oh, this is a random one, but just like, you know how now we've got roundabouts everywhere?
Yeah.
That's one of those random things where like, it actually is kind of weird because I would think that even though there's science that proves that these are better than stoplights, as long as they take up more space, but they're just in every way better than stoplights in every metric. In terms of traffic, in terms of accidents, they're just better. But you would kind of think that despite that, this town's going to go with stoplights because there's some company that makes the stoplights and they get kickbacks. But a roundabout's just asphalt on the ground. But we're actually seeing it everywhere. It's actually coming up where everybody's switching to roundabouts. And it's like, it's good to see. Somebody had to make that presentation and go, this is just better. Yeah. And there are reasons for it. And to make somebody convince people enough to go, all right, even though this takes up more space, we're going to start building these in places. We're going to start switching things over. And that's like a weird one. There was one that was recently constructed not too far from here. And that's why I drive past every day. And I'm like, I'm really glad they put a roundabout there because somebody that was smart had to come in and make a presentation and say, you could put a stoplight here, but the roundabout is better, you know, and probably cost effective too. I'm not sure. It just depends on if the construction cost is more than the traffic light cost, which, believe it or not, I have not looked into that personally. But you would assume that there'd still be, you know, there's differences, but it's good to know because I do know that those are better and it's been proven.
So do you feel like the human organism does things like that, where it discovers something that just works better, the simplest form, the Occam's razor of like the tangible answer to something, like a bottle opener? Like we can now just punch one out of stamped steel. Excuse me. Punch that stamped steel. It's very effective. It costs almost nothing. It's lightweight, you know. have we just found the right answer for certain things? And now, because our organism has to deal with this new system of transportation we've built, which is this like highway system that feeds our country. Now we've had to learn that roundabouts, are the Occam's razor, simplest answer.
I think if you look at it on that macro scale of like humanity's, like how it's changed, and you could even, some things that you might feel like that's not very good for society, but you look at it like at the grand scale, like ignore the corporation part of things, like Amazon, how it can deliver something to your door in 2 days. Now, part of that shipping company, but all of these different systems come together to make that happen. But in the end, it's beneficial for the species. Now, it might not be beneficial for certain people. There might be people in certain countries that are getting screwed over by Apple making iPhones there, right? But if you look at the entire species as a whole and what it changes for people and what it changes for our ability to continue on in that manner of how do we make things easier for the people. I don't know how you want to say, like, because some people are going to get screwed over by it, right? But the species as a whole, the people that are going to drive it forward at this point, are now able to get things delivered to their door the same day that they order it. And it can be extremely crazy things. Like you can get anything from food to like a chemistry set, whatever. It doesn't matter,
Dude, I get everything delivered.
Everything.
So it's worth mentioning because there's a fun list. And I became kind of a hermit when lockdown happened. It was sort of secretly a dream of mine. I'm a total prepper. I was completely prepared for whatever was going to happen. When they started saying silly shit about like looters, I was just laughing. I could literally arm a neighborhood watch. Walkie-talkies, appropriate weapons, meaning appropriate for the size shooter, safe weapons, that kind of a thing. And I'm not some militia guy. I'm just prepared because you might have to survive a really hard 3 months sometimes, like the pandemic just proved. Did I pull a gun on anyone? No. Did I need to defend my home? No. But we didn't know that, just like we didn't know it wasn't going to be the plague. So here's my point. It was kind of secretly a dream of mine to just stay home, man, and just watch the world eat itself. Because the whole country's full of assholes and set up like shit and run by thieves. So yeah, eventually that's gonna come apart. And I think we saw some of that fabric give a little. We saw some tears open up in it, right? But so my point is we sat there for so long that I realized that with Amazon, and this is how Jeff Bezos became the richest man in the world, we all realized you just have anything shipped to you. So let's go through the list. Man, how am I going to get Diet Coke? None of us can go in store. Oh, yep, they'll drop that on your front porch. Okay, yeah. Cool. Well, what about butter? There's no way I could get butter, right? Drop it on your front porch. Comes in a cooler case. Shipped the day before. Okay, well, I got to exercise. Like, I got to really get on my fitness because now we need to be healthier than ever because this thing's airborne and we don't know it isn't seeping through our windows because we're still in like, March of 19 or whatever in parenthood. So how about a whole gym? Yeah, they delivered a whole gym to my house, pound for pound. We ordered walkie-talkies for the neighborhoods, tactical vests to carry stuff. Also good for fishing, by the way.
Absolutely.
You name it, they would drop it at our door. And we had problems with the local grocery stores. They would fuck up the order. They would substitute. They would tell you your stuff wasn't available and show up without it. We had a lot of problems that way, not just through lockdown on current delivery services. But right now, today, I would say your average person doesn't have to leave their home to earn $50,000 a year, no problem. I would say $100,000 if you're living in one of the higher end locations like either coastline. You're going to make that $100,000. You're going to get all your stuff delivered. You probably wouldn't have to leave the house except for the essentials every couple of weeks.
Isn't that kind of like the purge scenario? Like the people that are privileged enough to just stay home and just make lots of money can do that and have everything delivered to their door. But the other people have to go out and they have to work. You're going to have to get that labor done. Labor has to be done in order for the rest to happen.
Well, okay, so let's just flip that around, though. I don't think that you can say that work done outside the home is work and work done inside the home is somehow any different. I would say this. Most people do have an accurate picture that your average ass person does not have the discipline to sit at a desk 8 focused hours a day and punch a clock, but they're finding ways to do it, to monitor it, to help you, because that is a hard rhythm to get into. I learned it really young. I learned it 18 out of high school. So I don't really know how to compare. And I've heard people have trouble, but I would argue that you're a lot more efficient working from your house. And we could sit here and talk about the reasons why, but I think that guy sitting at home, comfortable and happy and eating cheaper and like in his pajamas is doing a better job for me Then fucking Mike that got here at 9 this morning in a wrinkled dress shirt because fuck coming to this office and the coffee pot's overflowing and like now my day started. Yeah, hey Janice. And like that guy's gonna sit down.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're wrong about that. But all I'm saying is those guys that they have the ability to do that. But there's the ones that don't. There's the guys that have to go to the warehouse to package your stuff. There's the guys that have to go to the farm and pick it from the ground, you know?
Well, but then let's not say have to. Like, I got to be honest. If I could go be a gardener and make the money I make doing design and printing, I would love to garden for a living.
Fair.
I don't know how to make that money, but my point is you let the guys that want to garden be the gardeners and society is going to run okay.
That's fair. But do people want to be the guy that goes to the sewage system?
I think that's when we pay guys really well.
We actually do. And you're not wrong about that. You do get good money as like a sewage worker. Well, depending on your position.
Not always, though. Let's pay people for the unpleasant jobs, right? Because let's be honest. You're giving up your life and family time to come do this thing. Let's stop cramming square pegs into round holes and letting people hate their fucking jobs. That's not who we want out there in society doing it. So, but if you're going to be a police officer, that's a great, noble job for a lot of reasons. And I poke fun a lot because of my skateboarding background, I'm sure. My point is, I support the police very much for a lot of reasons. And one of the things I heard that bothered me lately was that a friend of mine who was an officer still has his badge. And he said, you want to know why I still have it? Because they couldn't ask for it back. Because when they were paying me $20,000 a year to risk my life at my day job, I had to pay for my own uniform and badge. These people can die at work today. Can we pay them way better than other people that are, say, serving sandwiches? Well, I served a lot of sandwiches.
I mean, they can die, but it's also one of the safer jobs, like ranking jobs in America, which I don't know if I could pull it up, but it's actually, because that's a common line, is like they risk their lives every day, but their actual like injury and fatality rate is really quite low compared to a lot of jobs. And I'm not talking just like the fishermen and the loggers.
Sure.
But it's not necessarily like, it's not top 10, you know?
You know who's got a dangerous job by my understanding, and I think this is all kind of in the same vein as game wardens, because they're just out patrolling property like they're supposed to, but they'll come up on a pot farm and those guys will shoot them.
They'll just shoot them, right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
There's a lot of jobs out there that I think should pay a lot better than they do. And I think that they would if it was up to the people how we pay for jobs, right? Like this is what I think's happening. Half your money gets taken by our bullshit fucking government. We just IRS the fuck out of everybody. They take about half your money, right? So I pay 25% in taxes right out of my check. And then you're paying for tax on this and local tax and that tax. So they take about half of any money you can scrape together in a year. And then we're constantly hearing reports about, $3 trillion unaccounted for because of black budget. Look, if the people were really spending the money, guys that got shot at and had to go fight gang members would get paid like fucking king's ransoms, right? Like seriously, we would pay those guys, the warrior class, like way more than we would pay. Like I was a waiter going.
Wouldn't they just stop doing it?
No, I think that they would do it really well because we would pay them well. And then with that extra money, hopefully would come extra support. I'm not really trying to get on the topic of just police, but how about teachers also needing counseling? If I had to be in a room with 30 children all day long, children say really mean things, I'm sure I could use some counseling. I need it now. And I'm not even in a room with 30 kids, And
let's bring in the 30 kids. Let's go.
So that's the thing. It's like you only have these people doing these careers that are either diehards. They were born to do it. They're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They couldn't do anything else, right? So they have to be a teacher. It's like they're a dyed-in-the-wool teacher in their soul. Or people that are like, fuck this job. It's not worth 30 grand a year. Shut up, you sniveling weasels, right? Like you get the ones that are good because they were going to be good no matter what in any profession. And then you get the shitheads that they're probably just rotating. They're probably just there for a while and then they're going to burn out. It's never the same kid at the drive-thru at Wendy's, Because fuck this job eventually.
I don't know. It's tough. I mean, yeah.
What would you do for a living if you could have any job? Just pick it.
Man, that's a tough one. Because all through my life, I was like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I'm like, no. A lot of them I went back on. Like, game design was always interesting to me. So, programming or 3D modeling or something like that. But ultimately, in the end, I was like, as a job, like something that this is what I'm supposed to do all day, I don't know if I'd like it. Like, it's something, it's fun as a hobby. Even though there's like things that's like, I would like them as a hobby, but I wouldn't necessarily like it as a job still. Even though I love it as a hobby, I'm just not interested in it as a job. Yeah, I like playing video games. I would not want a job playing video games. That sounds awful. That sounds terrible to me. There's people that are like, video game testing. No, it sounds awful. I would never want to do that ever.
Yeah. Everybody loves cake. Here, eat cake. 8 hours a day, cake. Every meal, cake.
Yeah, it's just much. It's just too much. And so
some things are perfect in the right dose.
Yes. Right. And the dose sometimes is whenever you choose when you start it, when you choose when you stop it.
Yeah.
And it's like I've had my fun and I'm done now and I can move on to something else and I can.
So to meet me, you would, like, if you just saw my home, you'd be like, this guy's maybe like obsessed with cars, right? I got a couple of hot cars. Or you might be like, this guy's obviously obsessed with Magic the Gathering. But in reality, the reason that I was never successful at the game, if that's the way you want to look at it, is because I'd go to a tournament and then I'd realize I have to play the same deck 9 times. And I'd be like, yeah, I just drop. Like, you guys go ahead.
Yeah, variety. I'm definitely a variety kind of person too, where hobbies change and, and I really do just enjoy
diversity?
Hanging out. Yeah, like different things. Like, it's got to be different. And even if it's a similar sort of job, it's like, at least I need to change it up day to day. There's got to be some change to it.
Sure. I think you're who taught me what a true introvert is. I believe it was you, and just go ahead, correct me if I'm wrong, that said a real introvert is somebody that goes out and spends time around people, but then comes home to be by themselves to recharge.
Yeah. So an introvert, they expend energy with other people. And they recharge their energy when they're by themselves. So they can still enjoy being out. I'm an introvert, that's what I would say. And I do love going out with people, but I'm just spending energy. And in order to, I'll be exhausted doing that enough where I just can't take it anymore. And I got to go and be by myself sometimes for like days or like a week and just be like totally alone and just hanging out by myself with other people around.
Yeah.
To really get that energy back. And an extrovert regains their energy when they're out and they expend it when they're alone. They're sitting at home and they're just like building up like stress because they want to get out there and they want to do stuff with people. And other people that try to get out every single day and spend time with somebody because that's where they get their energy from is doing that. But they can still enjoy being alone, but they got to get back out there before too long,
Yeah, I've always wondered about that. Like guys that could just go up to the bar by themselves and sit on a bar stool. Like, I'm not judging it or anything. I'm just saying, like, to me, that sounds exhausting. That sounds like I'm just going to be there by myself the whole time because I'm not going to expend the energy to get to know you kind of thing. I see time out with people as like a mountain climbing expedition. Yeah. I really do. Like, here's my mental analogy is I'm going to plan for it.
Yeah. You gotta prep. You got to get your bags. You got to get like, all right, so build yourself up.
Right. It's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be there. And when we finally go through all the rigmarole to get dressed and put on our nice cologne and get to the restaurant and meet each other at the table, it's like I'm at this peak and I really enjoy my friends.
Awesome. It's great. You're at the peak. This is awesome. It's what I came here for.
And then I got to go home and I got to sleep for 12 hours and spend a day recouping because I just climbed a mountain.
Right. Right. You know? And you can't spend too much time at that peak because it's like, guys, there's no air up here. I really got to get heading back down.
You know what else? I think I'm probably different. It's hard for me to necessarily stay on topic in the conversation because I'm that dyed-in-the-wool creative type, right? And I think we're built differently, we're tuned differently. But I think that your average introvert feels a lot the way that I do. So if I could pick my perfect job, it's tough to nail down because I tend to just dive into something and be fully immersed in it, really give myself to it. It's the only way. Wandering into the darkness is the only way to really find the edges of the cave you're in. You got to just pick up a torch and go. And sometimes it's miles and sometimes it's 10 feet and you smack your nose. So I feel like I just jump into things a lot like making shows. And I got to tell you, I still have no interest in the making of the show portion.
Right.
It's that I found I want to have meaningful conversations as often as possible because there's so much I don't know. So while there's other things I would like to do for a living at this point in my life, I'm really advanced as a designer, and that's something that's very close to my heart and I'm proud of, and I'm going to continue to just like polish and burnish that craft, right? But what I really need for the second half of my life, I'm 42 now, and this started for me, this journey at 40, I need all the conversations with all the good quality, intelligent people I can surround myself with because I have so much I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, that's a good way. I mean, it sounds like you really found what you're craving.
Mm.
And you're able to like seek that out and be like, this is what I want, and I'm gonna go for it, and you're going for it, and that's great. I couldn't tell you what that is for me because still don't know. If it's like the sort of thing where it's like they ask you when you're 10, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, I'm 29 now, and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, which may happen eventually. Who knows?
You know what? Let's talk about that real quick. So you're 29 now, right?
Sure.
Right?
Last time I checked. I think so.
Are you worried about turning 30? Does that affect you mentally in some way?
It's definitely something I've considered where it's like 30, man, it's like there are people that, they have a career in New York City and they're making $200,000 a year and they got the 2.5 kids, whatever. And they're doing great before this age. And I'm about to turn 30, right? And it's like, what am I doing? And I thought about that before, but I think in the end, I just go, as long as I enjoy what I'm doing, does it matter where I am?
Where do you draw the line on that stuff, right? Because let's be honest, like every guy in America has to feel like, if you just want to talk about these base level insecurities,
mm-hmm.
I mean, Brad Pitt exists. So like, what if I'm at that pool in Vegas one time and I have to have my shirt off, right? Okay. But Brad Pitt has to be like, damn, there's a guy that looks like me, but like bigger and tattooed with a 9-inch dick somewhere, and then that guy has to be like, oh, well, there's this dude that's that, plus he's an MMA fighter and he has an 11-inch cock. I mean, it's like, just where do you draw the line to start or stop beating yourself up? When you really compare. And so is it like, are you actually envious of those people, or is it just that they have a comfort level you'd like to have and in your life would look totally different with those same means, I
think those people have stresses too, right? So it's
so much stress.
Like, let's say you're like, man, I wish I was a movie star that had like $1 million, $1 billion mansion, whatever, living out in LA. But it's still like, there comes a stress with that, right? Everybody's got their own stresses. Doesn't matter where you are.
Contracts to honor, relationships you're in, mistakes you've made.
Yeah, it's like
mental health.
If you have no money, you have stresses. They're just different stresses. They can be more basic, like, how am I going to afford rent this month? That's different. I'm sure Brad Pitt's not worried about that. But he's also, those sort of guys are also like, they don't get to where they are because they decided, well, I'll just try a little bit. They're trying as hard as they can. Right. And so he's got to be like, am I putting in the same effort as I did? Or is my best days behind me? Am I at that point? And that's got to be something they think about too.
You touched on some topics I want to talk about. Is the reason I ask you your age.
Yeah.
I met Rollo through you. Rollo's co-host on, Dolce Friday. And he's obsessed with age. And first, I would just like to say that I don't know when is a good time to decide you've had your best days. I really don't. And I would say crossing the threshold of 40 might have taught me this, but when is it not a good time to be the best version of yourself? Like, by the things we value, when is it not a good time to make a little more money, have a little less body fat, eat better, have better overall health, work on your mental? Like, when is it a fucking bad time to be the best version of yourself? And I heard this a lot, reconnecting with a lot of my friends after the age of 40. Here I am, 42. And they say stuff like, why are you working out so much, dude? We're like 40 now. What the fuck does that mean? Like,
that's crazy.
This is the first time in my life that I've had the resources to be the best version of myself, that I can sleep enough and still pay the rent, that I can eat good quality food, right? That I can take the supplements that anybody should be taking. Anybody in America with some financial means should just be taking these over-the-counter supplements. All legal, good, healthy, natural stuff. 40 was the first time I could be good to myself and afford healthcare. What? So I expect to be the best version of my human self at 45 years old. Why is that a bad thing? Why the age hang up with people? Because I got to be honest, I look at 20-year-olds and nothing against you, but your brain's not even done developing. You by nature can't be as good as a person who's 25 and their brain's finished being developed. So it's like seasons of life. And I'm not saying anything bad against younger ages. I'm not one of those guys that turned 40 and now I think 40 is better. That's not it. There probably is a prime age for everybody, but what's a good day to wake up and not try to be the best version of yourself yet?
I don't think there's ever a time, like, even when you're 80, whatever,
The fuck ever. Be the best photographer you've ever been at 80.
Like, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of evidence of people that have gone out and done something great at a very old age. And it's like, and that's what you know them for. So it's not like anybody can't be like that. So I'm not worried about that myself. Like, I still think my best days are ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about it. Like, But, you know, I mean, there is that time whenever you go, maybe I'm not going to get that private jet in this life. And you got to kind of accept that. Like, you're like, damn, it's like, that would have been cool to do, but I just didn't really, I didn't take my time before to make that happen.
But there's also a time in your life that you find out that you're not going to date Nancy Miller. So it's like, but looking back, did you really need to date Nancy? But that was like a thing you wanted when you were 15. There's no Nancy Miller. I made that up. But
I was just thinking to myself, like, damn, how young am I? Is this like,
no, my whole point is, do you really need a fucking jet?
No, probably not.
So I'm not a psychologist and I'm not trying to dissect you or anything, but let me lift the pin on this. It's interesting that earlier we talked about magic and then we talked about the win scenario, the win versus the journey. And we were talking about team sports versus like solo ride sports, right? So for me, I described that if I had a day in the water surfing and I lose a competition, which I was never in one, but it wouldn't detract from the fact I spent a day like collecting sun rays, man, and feeling great and enjoying inertia. That's different. And so we talked about that, the idea of that like win scenario. And when you described this sort of traditional idea of a win scenario for an American, like homeowner, nuclear family, 2.5 children, I guess I would pose to you that that's sort of what I'm saying with having these conversations is on my side of the table is whatever this magical career is we both pick, because I posed the question that if you could have anything, is like, I want something where I really actually enjoy the journey. Not just I've assigned it in my head that having this cubicle in this glass high rise that faces the Google building makes me an awesome graphic designer. I actually want to go there in a day. There's a huge difference. And I think most of us are caught on that like win scenario, right? 100 grand, got the house. I don't think most people enjoy their life.
I think most people don't know. Well, no, I think most people do enjoy their life. I think.
Do they really?
Well, I mean, that's hard to say.
I'm not poking fun at anybody. I mean, have they just sort of learned to go on, right? Are they really fulfilled? The examples I would think of is our friends that you know to this day that have still working in fast food 10 years later.
Yeah. But a lot of those people, like, I mean, yeah, they might, you know, it's a weird thing where it's like, you see these people sometimes, and they hate their jobs. Mm-hmm. They hate their jobs. It's like, I gotta hate this. I wish I made more money. But at the same time, like, that's not their whole life. They do other things, and they enjoy those things.
Sure.
Now, I'm sure they would have enjoyed to do them more if they had more time to do them because their job required them less or more money to go out and do hobbies or maybe different hobbies. But I think ultimately, they do, for the most part, your lives. You get some people that do end up in those depression pits because they're like, I do hate the things I do at work and I hate the things I do outside of work.
Sure. And
I feel sorry for that. You got to change something. It can be hard to change things. Everybody, we like to say this. We like to keep things the same, even when those things suck, because it's the same and we're used to it.
Familiarity.
It's familiarity.
Okay, but I would pose this. I think that most people don't really get to know themselves, and it's not their fault because we're all slaves to debt pretty much from birth. You have to have this, get a job, get a car to get to your job, now pay the insurance for everything. Now it's most optimal to find a mate and get a home. Somebody has cut a tailored formula that everybody's trying to fit. What I'm saying to you is that most people never have a passion project because they don't have the time or the financial resources to consider one. When you have a passion project, you get to see yourself care about something that's meaningful and improve at it. And then you can see yourself create a collection of it or tend to something or be a good steward of it. And you can impress yourself with how you learn new things. You get to have a more fulfilling path through life. And that could have been stamp collecting or building ships in a bottle or making TikTok videos, whatever it is that just kind of lets the human spirit be itself. And I would pose to you that most people are never allotted that opportunity, and that crushes the human spirit, and that those people are more likely to end up in really bad places. Okay. Which is not good for us in society. But also I would say that like most people have to go give so much energy to their fucking menial job they hate that they've given the best part of themselves in every day to something they despise or at very least don't care about. And now you're going to go give it, at best case scenario, your second best energy into something you care about, including your relationship and family. You know,
it's possible.
There's no way that you come home with the best you in a day after 9 hours of being a fucking manager with a tie on and drinking shit coffee. There's no way. So your family's getting second best. That's how our whole society's set up.
It might be. I think there's one thing that you might not agree with this, but because I think, obviously the best point of view you have is your own, right? And you're a creative person, and it's hard for you to view anything outside of being a creative person, right?
It is.
Passion and ideas and making them come into reality somehow, right? But I think there's a lot of people that just aren't as interested in making something for themselves, especially nowadays. I think there's a lot of people in this world that are so disinterested in creating something because they feel like it's all been done. It hasn't. But it's like, there's been a lot of things that's like, it's hard to come up with new ideas. When you look on the internet and you type in your best idea and it's somebody's already made it and made $1 million off of it. And you're like, oh, well, there goes my idea. But I think even Twitch does a good job of showing this, YouTube in general, all these things, all these platforms of media, is that there's a lot of people that are just happy living through other people. And they're okay, and they enjoy that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily.
Sure.
To be the kind of person, it's something that could be different. And for some people, it's like, how can you ever enjoy just living through somebody else and not doing it for yourself? But I think there's so many people that are just fine watching somebody else do really cool things, even if they're not doing it. They might be like, yeah, I'd like to do that. But they're also like, that's cool, but there's a lot of things you have to do to make that happen. And I can enjoy just watching them do it. And I can be happy with that. Sure. I mean, how many people live their whole lives, watching TV every day? They go home and watch TV.
Yeah.
And there are people that just wanted to do that. They didn't want to be a movie star. They just wanted to go home and watch movies. And that was the thing they liked to do.
Okay, so.
And they can be happy doing that,
Excuse me. I completely understand what you're saying, and every word of it is valid. Okay, yes. A lot of steps go into that scuba video we saw, and I'm not going to go get certified and take lessons and months later go get in the water and then eventually, no, I'm going to watch scuba diving on my television. You're right. Mm-hmm. But let me just roll it back. Let me give you a really simple analogy. So I've shared with you, because we reconnected over this past week, a couple of times that in the morning, by no exaggeration, I get woken up at my specific window. I guess I should say my window specifically on my side of the bed. Yeah. Every morning, same time, by a baby squirrel. And the baby squirrel meets me at my back door where it's waiting for me to feed him and his 8 neighbors. And every day lately, I start my day as a creative professional up earlier than I would have been if I waited for an alarm that I didn't have to listen to and be mad at. So I've beat my alarm. I've got my back door open. I'm letting fresh air and sunshine in, and I'm watching 9 grateful little animals be adorable. And I take that energy and I go start my day. Well, lucky you. Wow, you sound like a rich guy. No, I have an inexpensive home up against the woods. I lucked out with a scenario because I cultivated it to some point, right? By putting feed out and stuff like that. My point is, I wanted to start my day in some regard that created a happiness to be awake and alive in my day so that I could try to springboard from that. If you could just get there once in a day, it's a pretty good day is the mindset. My point is, what if a guy that is who you're describing, that is happy being him, just needed to come into work at 10:30 and work until 6:30 because that guy has been feeding these squirrels in the morning. And man, on the weekends when he gets that hour, just sitting there smoking a cone and feeding these little animals and getting that sunshine, boy, he just floats through a Disney episode the whole rest of his day. Hey, but Johnson, you came in at 9:07 today, bro. We need you punching that little box, dude. Do you see what I'm getting at when I talk about, you don't have to dive into some big hobby. You don't have to go be a paraglider or something. You can watch everything on TV, but the human spirit just doesn't want to get crammed into a fucking 9 to 5, Yeah. People need to be able to work on the best version of themselves scale. And the problem is we don't trust people to scale their own lives and routines because the system doesn't trust. It was set up by geniuses and assholes and megalomaniacs that just want to squeeze every penny out of their employees, right? And these Scrooge motherfuckers just put a bunch of rules that these people have to enforce, that those people oversee them enforcing. And the guy down here working the teller, that's just not a good job for him. It's not okay.
Yeah.
So I just think that people need to be able to find a little bit more meaningful jobs, but the corporations are too scared to set up a system that hires meaningful people because they got to be able to replace your ass.
It's easier that way. There was I think it's Iceland. Don't quote me, but you can, but you shouldn't. That they tested out 4-day work weeks.
Okay.
Or at least a section of the country. Again, don't quote me, but do if you want to. It's a thing where they tested out 4-day work weeks, and it was just like, all right, we're just going to see how this works out. It's still 8 hours a week, so it's only 32 hours. And it was apparently wildly successful. I was the kind of person that reads the headline, doesn't actually read the article.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of success there. And some of the comments, this is actually the more relevant part, is some of the comments talking about how like, oh, that's cool, but that would never happen in America because we don't allow that. And there's, some people saying, well, why not? And others saying, well, you just can't. You can't do that. It's not how we function because why work 32 hours when you can work 40 because you're just get more work done. But it's like, but if you're more efficient in those 32 hours than you are in 40, then isn't that all that matters? But it's a very American thing. Very American thing. I mean, I don't think
I worked 80 hours this week.
Yeah, I don't think it's nearly as big in Europe.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's very big here of just like put in more hours. You got to do the thing where you go into work and you're like, oh, I only slept 5 hours last night. The next guy says, oh, you slept 5 hours? I only slept 4.
Yeah.
And it's always like, everything sucks for me more, so you shouldn't even feel bad because it's worse for me,
Are you ever that guy that walks into a pane of glass and then realizes everyone around you should be laughing because it was really obvious they super had it marked that this door won't open, right? Right? But that happens, you're like, what the fuck? I'm a reasonable, smart human. How did this happen to me, right? So I totally had that moment with a buddy from Europe. He moved to the Ukraine right after high school. And we just happened to connect on the phone. And he was asking me about my company. And I was really pumped because me and my business partner had it running smooth and it's on the up and up. And I, all these clients we got, man, I worked like 65 hours this week, dude. And he goes, that sounds awful. Oh. What? And he starts telling me, he's like, we don't understand why you guys are bragging about giving up so much of your life. He goes, I get 28 days a year vacation. He goes, we spend like a month at a time with our family. And he's like, we take off 2 months a year for vacation. So it's something like that. He was explaining it to me that they specifically get like our vacation. We all expect what? 2 weeks, right? In America, 2 weeks. And they usually don't let you take it consecutively because the ship would melt down because we're always understaffed because corporate's cheap. Okay. He gets like a month at a time. They get like 28 days and 28 days, something like that. So you're working 10 months. He was talking about the quality of life, how you go home for 2-hour lunches to be with your family, poke at the kids' homework or something because they're in class. Everybody goes back to their place. You sort of get through a day reasonably how we would do it if there wasn't a slave driver above us talking about, Phillips, we need those fucking reports, efficiency. Nobody works good like that, man. Nobody works good like that.
No, that's something that hopefully some change happens. It's hard to, it's more than just the corporations telling us how it is because everybody kind of has that same mentality and you got to change it on every level. You got to fix that on every level.
You do.
So
I do believe that a revolution's coming and I talk about it all the time. And I want to clarify because I have a clothing line called Soldier that the revolution I'm talking about is in no way armed humans. I'm talking about the psychedelic revolution, and I don't think that it needs me to talk about it, but I think it's this simple. I think that, excuse me, ex-military veterans, specifically wounded veterans, and that could be mental afflictions like severe literal PTSD. This is actually happening to these people. It exists. It's real. It's debilitating. They're having really good progress with MDMA. Yeah. Psychedelic therapy. They're finding in Alzheimer's, certain mushrooms help with those neural pathways. All of this stuff was super duper suppressed, held down. The 80s war on drugs, everything's so terrible. DARE program. I think that the revolution that's coming is psychedelics up, alcohol down, genuine psychedelic therapy, and plant medicine. And it's not going to be hippy dippy stuff. It's going to be put out by all the big names, but it's going to say psilocybin. It's going to be the medical version of magic mushrooms. There's been huge breakthroughs like with microdosing and stuff. And we always hear about the guys in Silicon Valley, like on the different YouTube channels I watch, microdosing, specifically psilocybin, some MDMA for different reasons. And we have a buddy that's going to do a show about it. But what I think happens in this revolution is that people start to, first of all, eliminate alcohol from their diet. You've watched me drink heavily, and now I don't drink at all. We poke around and have beverages sometimes on Dolce Friday, but in evaluating my health, I realized there's just no place for alcohol. I mean, it's just literally a poison. It's terrible calories. Just don't. It's not optimal. I think that enough people in America, through natural experimentation, and sure, I'll try one of those, and yeah, I'll take a puff. I think enough people try cannabis products that we see a significant shift away from alcohol. And I really think that's going to affect the human organism.
Yeah.
In profound ways. Like, I'm not talking parties and bars. I'm talking about your career. I think that it's going to change the mental state of the entire country.
I think it's totally possible. I agree about alcohol. It's just, I've never seen it as anything but a destructive substance personally. Like, I've not seen people that get drunk and they're like, now that I'm drunk, I can improve the world.
Right. I'm a better version of myself.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
No.
It just lessens those stresses, but it doesn't make them better. It doesn't improve their lives, you know?
No, it's interesting that you say that, because actually I'm going through that right now in my own life. So I'm a guy that doesn't drink in my daily life, doesn't think about the stuff. I don't buy the stuff. Don't worry about it. We were doing a guy's comedy show, Dolce Friday. We started having beverages on Fridays, but I'm still taking supplements for the gym. And I always forget that as my supplements change, they have interactions with alcohol that are not good. And so on the last Dolce Friday, at some point I walk out of the studio because I wasn't feeling well, and I never walk back in. I maybe drank a 6-pack of beer. I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, this was not like I drank a lot of booze. It hit me funny. And then I had a shitty next morning. And then I realized that was kind of a Friday thing, that we would all have beverages, and my next day wasn't as good. And then it just occurred to me, in what reality do I have enough time on my hands not to feel as good as possible every day? And it's like it just shut off for me. It just changed everything. I was like, oh, okay, we're done with that again.
Why would you? I mean, what's the point of ingesting something if you're like, afterwards you're like, I don't feel as good? There's no point. It's just a waste of time.
Well, and even the guys that would argue, like Rollo, that I've never had a hangover. Yeah, but there's no way you're as good on or after alcohol as no alcohol. So, like, in the rules, it's not great.
It's like, I don't know.
But until you see it that way, until you've had a paradigm shift, it's sold on every corner by underwear models throwing neon signs in your windshield.
What if you want to be like a drunken master, though? That's a little bit different. Come on.
Well, yeah, but then you got to first get a black belt while drunk, and then I'll let you do whatever you want.
Okay, fair. I'll work on that one. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, anybody that impressive, it's like, you just go ahead and drink, bro. And also, stop twitching at me.
Yeah.
Thanks for not hitting me.
But I definitely agree. Like, gotta end that war on drugs. I gotta deal with that. And speaking of which, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Adderall, for supporting the podcast.
Right? We're over here. Adderall.
Yeah.
With the easy open caps.
I love that shit, man. It's the best kind.
Let's write a screenplay.
Love it. Let's do it.
I actually don't know what Adderall is. It's the upper though, right?
It's like the ADHD medication.
Yeah.
Get you focused, like really focused.
Focus in, like on The Simpsons and
that was like a Magic the Gathering thing. I think I know there was like a chess thing, maybe chess, where Magic the Gathering players or poker players would be taking Adderall because it's technically in those situations performance enhancing to be able to concentrate that hard in the mental task.
Sure.
You know, so it's like it's kind of an interesting thing. You got those guys that dope, and then you guys that take ADHD medication in order to keep themselves, you know, like mind going so they can think 100% of the time.
So now that we're talking about that, I'm going to go ahead and weigh in and make a prediction. It's going to be a proud day when good old cannabis gets put on the ledger, whatever they vote on, and then like voted in officially as a performance enhancing drug. And I mean that.
It could be. I mean, depending on whatever it's something that can mellow you out, right? So in something that's high stress sort of competition, it could certainly make that difference.
So let me say this. You don't consume any kind of cannabis, right?
No.
So it's always interesting information, I think, in general. I found it really interesting to learn. And, you know, I'm kind of a fact nut like you are. But I think most people picture what pot does to you in a certain way. Like, would you mind describing how you picture it literally?
Right. So, like, there's like two different ways that I see like somebody that smoked a lot of pot. One of them is you got the guy that's just totally like, dude, and he's just like eating Taco Bell or whatever.
Right.
The person that's just really high on some strain of marijuana. But then you have the opposite side of the guy that's just totally relaxed. And you can talk to him and he's like, yeah, it's cool. No, I like to hear that. No, that's awesome. And he's just totally, nothing phases that person, you know? And if we're talking about something that could be considered performance enhancing drug, whatever makes that second person to just be like, nothing's affecting me. And I'm just feeling good and I feel fine and I'm just level, you know?
Sure.
Then that's something different, you know, than.
So let me throw this out at you. You said Adderall earlier. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that there's a difference between Adderall and what's another one that we're familiar with? What's legal heroin?
Oh.
Everybody's had morphine.
Morphine. Okay.
Everybody's had at the hospital. Well, you haven't had any surgeries.
No.
So, okay. Would you say there's a difference between Adderall and heroin?
Yeah.
And what would you say that difference is?
So like, I mean, just by its basic nature, right? Adderall is like, it's an up, but I mean,
Heroin's down, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying. So I think that the reason that everybody has the ideas they have in their head about pot is because we've seen a bunch of movies made by guys that probably didn't smoke much pot or some that did smoke a lot. And there's a lot of misnomers out there. I will say this about marijuana. It does not give me the munchies at all whatsoever. Maybe I'm lucky that way. But also, there is marijuana that will absolutely put me to bed, and that is what I have it for, is my sleep aid. It replaced pharmaceutical sleep medication for me and works like the other didn't. But I have cannabis that's a true sativa strain. I have several of them that I call it jacked weed. Like, I can't smoke that stuff and sit down and do a vodcast. They say I bang on the table, the guys joke. That jacked weed that we joke about, those true heavy sativas have such an upper effect. I'm using it for the gym. I'm using it to get my housework done without anxiety. If I have to do a business meeting, like on my computer, whatever that is these days, you know, Zoom, FaceTime, screen sharing stuff that we're doing. That stuff is so up. I got ideas blaring at me. I mean, I got to literally find devices to record ideas on. I started keeping notepads everywhere, like on the fridge and next to my bed. And I got a drawer and a side table that's just sketchbooks. And I have a sketchbook on my dining room table at all times because I know I can walk there and get this idea down. Yeah, the ramblings of a madman, right? Then I go back and review these things when I'm not elevated, and they're so fucking usable that you're sitting in a room full of them right now.
Yeah.
So what I would say is that it is so performance enhancing once you understand that there's at very least 4 speeds of this stuff, right? Like a sativa dominant hybrid, an indica dominant hybrid, and an indica. You can accomplish a lot more when you're using Adderall instead of heroin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that most people think they understand what weed is and what medical cannabis is and what medical marijuana is. Everybody has like this picture in their head, and I'm here to say you don't.
It's different. It's different. Well, but I mean, that's like the whole point, right? The people, the ones in charge. Well, marijuana's been, you know, people go to prison for it still today. They do.
But here's what's insane.
The war on drugs, it's always like marijuana. Oh, this is your brain on drugs. That bullshit, right?
Right. So my own father, I hate to put words in somebody's mouth, but just for sake of this conversation, let's pretend that he said he's totally against it for recreational use. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Maybe people don't need to be smoking it on park benches. But he has watched my life improve so greatly once I started consuming cannabis, which started for me at 40. I wasn't fucking smoking weed all the time. So I take this on as kind of a last resort medically, and then find out how beneficial it really is to my life. And then my own father still sees it as like, you know, like weed. And it's funny because I don't know a single person that has any experience with it that has a problem with it, that worries about it. It's so lighthearted compared to what most people picture. You know, I think most people like cannabis, the reason all rapes happen, or some silly shit, you know, like they've got it on par with like cocaine or something, and they don't even know what they're missing out.
I have heard of some people that, you know, they smoked a lot, but then they had to stop because even though they liked it, there was sort of thing where they just would smoke it and then just be like, I'm not doing anything. And they just got to the point where they're like, I need to be more active. So they stopped smoking just so that way they can do other things.
But I would say in almost every situation, more than 9 out of 10 people, maybe 99 out of 100 you just described, just bought air quotes weed from air quotes their guy. And that is so different than dispensary marijuana or professionally grown cannabis. Same stuff. Love both names. Where you know the strain, you know how it affects you, you know its consistency, you know you can consistently buy it. I mean, that's a medication that can be tailored to an individual. You can't do that with here's what did we name earlier? How about an Ambien was one of them that I used to have to take.
Yeah.
There's no versions of Ambien. I can't tailor this to myself to get it right. It just has the effects it has and get fucked.
That is actually a important distinction. Is like, because when you talk about marijuana as a drug, there's a lot of different versions of marijuana.
So whereas hundreds.
Yeah. Whereas, you go get oxycodone. There's oxycodone. There's not this version and this version. There's just, that's what it is.
Right.
So, I mean, it could be cut with something, I suppose, but whatever.
And so here's my point. Overwhelmingly, the people out in society that think society should have the power to dictate things like this are illegal have no experience with it. And here's what I'm saying is if one person exists that had a pretty great existence, and then 15 years on pharmaceuticals that evidence shows really drug this human existence down, and then gets right off of them, thanks to cannabis, coincidentally, arbitrarily, out of the blue, I should say, and then skyrockets and starts doing really great. If one person exists that can break this down by strain and type and tell you the differences, if that one person exists, then who the fuck are you to tell people they shouldn't have access to that? Like, if you have no experience with everything I could tell you about cannabis, in what world do you have a fucking right to tell other people that they can't know all the things I know and try it out? And most of the people I know that have tried cannabis would never vote to make it illegal.
Yeah, right.
And I know you're open-minded. I know we're not, debating it here. But what the fuck with things like that being illegal? It's just a little green plant that grows.
Yeah, that's weird. It was Bernie and the Rooster Teeth podcast that talked about how. Oh yeah, you listen to them?
I will not act like I listen to them, but I will say that I've seen them and I was like, haha, right?
They're just funny.
Entertaining.
Yeah, that's it, right? But he talks about how man, I've already lost my train of thought. So cannabis.
That's always my train of thought. So
that is
we could have been talking about anything before this, and I would have looked up at you and been like, cannabis.
Oh wow, no way. But I lost my train of thought. Dang.
On their show though, Rooster Teeth.
Yeah, there's on their podcast. Bernie was talking about before about something, and I've already lost it. So
we'll circle back around.
Probably will.
So I really appreciate you coming on my show because this is a pretty intimate show. What I do here is mostly listen. You and I have been good friends for coming up on a decade, so I do more talking with you than I would with a regular guest. This is really sort of my time to learn. We've been through a time in a society that's very different, and I say that I just like to tell human interest stories. You don't have to be a famous book author. You don't have to be on a speaking circuit. Human interest stories is that humans are interesting and everybody has a story. And I love it when my friends will sit in front of me and share part of that. So going through the pandemic, living in Missouri, you would have been like 27, 28 years old, right? And now coming off of it, and here you are, you're about to enter your 30s. You can tell people about yourself, but like, do you have fear and worry? Like the media seems to be projecting that everybody in their 20s and us do. Like, do you have a certain fear of dread? Do you feel the country's improving or going downhill? Like living in America, how are you feeling July of 2021?
Every year, maybe not. Okay, every year is not a great. We had 2020. Over time, things get better. They just do. They just do.
What do you mean things? Civil rights. Food supply, like just things get better.
Things get better
in America or just globally. Like, what are you saying?
I would say in America currently, like, because it's hard to say. I mean, there's countries that have gone through civil war and things are like,
yeah, we don't know other countries, right?
I don't know other countries. Like, I can't.
I tell people all the time, they're like, best country in the world. I'm like, North Koreans think that. Like,
I mean, Syria's probably not feeling as good as it did like 10 years ago. I don't know, but I know in America, it's like all the time, things are getting better. Like at least let's say Western civilization.
It's getting better for us.
It's getting better for us.
Thank you. I'm grateful.
Right. I mean, it's like always. That's like healthcare improves. We have advances all the time. Just things get better. It's like I can't. You look 10 years ago. Smartphones were still brand new, just about. I mean, they came out. I don't know when the iPhone came out, like 2008 or something.
Maybe back in like 2004.
Yeah, so it's like the sort of thing where it's like, no, I was in high school when it came out. I remember that.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like over time things do get better. They just get better, and life gets easier. So if I was gonna say like in 10 years, do I think things are gonna be better or worse? I think they're gonna be better. And I do. I think it's just a trend of it, and trends thing. Momentum is hard to change. That doesn't mean necessarily that it is, but I'm more. It's a weird thing where I would say generally I'm a pessimist. But when it comes to things like that, I'm an optimist. I'm like, because I follow the trend just continues.
I would argue that things definitely get overall better in America for the top 2/3 of Americans. Like I would say, yes, everything you're saying is correct. Yeah. And I would say that there is some trickle down for advantage, meaning you could be in the bottom third financially in America and still walk into a hospital emergency room that's better equipped to save your life or your loved one's life, no matter how much money you have in your pocket. Yeah, you're right. Are we better off than 100 years ago? Are we better off than when people were living in wood cabins? Like everyone? Yeah. No, you're right. But I think that we have to look at the percentage of our organism that has to suffer to get there.
I think in that case, though, well, I mean, if you look at the whole world, I mean,
let's stick with America since we could talk about that. I don't have a good reference.
Like, it's possible that as things get better here, things get worse elsewhere because we're screwing everything else. And it's really hard to gauge. Like, obviously, there are parts of the world that we're screwing, and they're screwing themselves in ways too.
And I don't like to talk about those politics because how could I be educated?
We don't have all like we just don't know what we're doing. But I would say is like when you look at it that way, it's like in 10 years. Like 2/3. I would say even more than that. I mean, I don't know like exactly how much I would say, but I would say more than that. But I would say that yes, that top percent gets better, gets way better, way faster than the rest of us. Like whenever we get to the point, whenever we're going to be like,
right,
we can get free food delivered to all of us wherever we want because there's so much of it, so easy to grow. Then the top guys will be like, we had that for 5 years. You know what I mean? So I'll say that that's definitely true, where if that top percentage is going to be like prioritize themselves so much more and they have the power to do it, they're going to. But we will get it. We just won't get quite as good, as quite as fast. But we'll get there and it will be better.
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting point. I feel like the biggest thing that those at the top, and I always mean the ruling elite, the 500 people that run this planet, what they're really taking from everybody else, and I mean truly everybody else, is the rest of us would get there and would get there faster together. They constantly keep us divided. And because they want it now, and because they have to be better than everybody, they put all this primping and preening and culture and cotillion in place so that they can be better than you. I mean, that's the only way that you can tell two dogs apart is like which one's never been washed and which one's got curls in its fur, right? I mean, so these fucking these blue bloods or whatever they are, this ruling elite class, they've always got to be ahead of everybody else, and it makes everybody else get there a lot slower. And I argue if those 500 people didn't wick so many resources out of the human population, that all the rest of us would much more harmoniously get places in tandem. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can say just from my high school experience in Long Beach, I knew dudes that wouldn't nickel and dime bag and, hustle drugs if like they just could have had a regular ass job in a regular ass neighborhood, So certainly I think people given opportunity, most will do better with that opportunity. Right? Yeah,
I think you're 100% right. That is totally correct. By far, I mean, I don't see how anybody can argue against it. But I will say something that I don't know if you'd agree with me on. And it's not a very fun thing. I just think it's how it is.
Okay.
Is that top 500 that rule over the whole world, whatever number it be, whoever it is, whoever actually has the power.
Sure.
It's not because they woke up and said they're going to be the one that rules. It is humans. It is human nature that put them in that position. They did not do that by themselves. 1,000 people had to be behind them to prop them up to that position, whether or not they got anything out of it. And it's just humans that would do that. If those 500 people weren't there, it'd be 500 others, whether they chose to be it or not, and they would just be in that same position.
I disagree with you.
See, I thought you might.
I disagree with you, and you might change your opinion if you think about it in this way. We're not alive that long as an individual existence, right? Mm-hmm. You and I. Let's call it 85 years to be realistic. I'm going to round it down to 80 because it's faster to talk about. You're alive 80 years. You're not... I mean, if you look at all of human history, right? I believe in God, but I certainly am an evolutionist and I'm possibly an evolutionist, but I certainly believe that there's been branches of humans and that we're all cousins. And so like the Neanderthals or the Denisovans, whatever they talk about with the new research. And then now maybe they've discovered another thread. So there's all these different versions of humanity. And at some point we went through as humanity this age where if you could get a group of men together with metal weapons, they could tell everybody else the fuck what to do. And I would argue with you that the reason that you see like all the United States presidents and all the lineage of the monarchy comes from this one bloodline of like Vlad the Impaler or something weird, and through cousinry and inbreeding, which is in the history books, they keep this pretty close. I would argue that the reason that they can do that is because humans went through a period of the antithesis of enlightenment when we clubbed each other to death. And during that time, brawn won. And that bottleneck exists because the roots have just grown too deep. If you take the money the Rothschild family has, it just owns so much of the world and it has so much control. I don't know that it's possible to unseat them. And so what I say to you in summation is that our organism goes through a period like the Dark Ages and then has an enlightenment. And then nowadays, people are born and they're taller and bigger and stronger and faster and way less racist. And their pituitary glands are different and our frontal cortex is different. We're this upgraded version, right? Physically and of firmware. We've got bigger brains. But still, this ruling class has roots so deep that though this human organism has this giant saga, somehow when part of it was like brawn over brain, those people grew roots that we can't seem to get rid of. But what I would pose to you is that if we could ever one time just make the sociopaths actually go to jail and change the system, that it would run smoother after this. If we just get rid of the motherfuckers with armies and swords one time, I think that we can keep it going from there. It was part of the human evolution as a culture.
But that's implying that's the politicians that have all the power, but it's not, right? And the guys with the most power and the most money, you likely have never heard of. You likely nobody has heard of because they have the money to make sure you have not heard of them.
What about the Bilderberg Group? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, a whole bunch of people. And they're all the same names. They're all the same families.
So it's the most air quotes powerful people in the world. And you're right. Like the movie Contact, there could be some hidden super billionaires somewhere. And that could exist. I admit that. But
a lot of it's like, it's not even like in money, right? It's like in assets or whatever. And it's all through companies. And they just have it.
Well, it's stuff like I talk a lot about the relationship.
Like, yeah, it's like you get the CEO that calls a guy and that guy calls a guy and that's the guy that actually knows things.
Well, that's it. I mean, they tie it up in bureaucracy and they can put secrets in plain sight. And we all know this exists. We all know that devious humans during their short time on Earth will spend their brain power to manipulate other people because it's a real simple formula. You don't really have to believe in conspiracies. Is there a guy that has multiple billions of dollars and you have none in your bank account? How many people had to have none in their bank account for him to have billions in his? It's not like it's all that conspiratorial.
The money had to come from somewhere.
Rigged.
Yeah, it came from somewhere.
It's set up for him to have billions. A lot of people got to have none, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just sort of set up that way in our world.
A lot of people just give it up, though. They give it up. People will sit there. I mean, we'll go back to Amazon. People will sit there and complain about Jeff Bezos is the richest person in the world. And they'll go, he should give us back that money. And then they go on Amazon and they buy a coffee maker. And it's like, well,
listen.
How do you think you got there? You gave him money. Everybody gave him money.
I'm perfectly happy with Jeff Bezos being the richest man in the world. That's fine. But here's the thing. There is a difference in human because if I was ever the richest man in the world, somehow, some way, nobody would hear fucking rumors about me that somewhere in my facility People were pissing in bottles because they were scared they'd get fired if they took a bathroom break. Maybe it's not true. I'm sure they say allegedly, but we all know there's people pissing in bottles in Amazon warehouses because they're scared the robots will outwork them and they'll get fired or whatever it is. No one would ever hear that about my companies because only those sociopathically minded guys that are willing to play team sports with the rest of the politicians come be one of us gets there. And then you hear shit like that because of course there's slaves building Apple products. We know there's slaves in other countries. We know that we build it there because it's cheaper. Who do you think they're using? Shut the fuck up. Like, it's so simple. It's so baseline, you know?
Yeah, but that's why those guys are on top, is because they did that.
And they're willing to step on people.
Right.
So I would argue to you that our organism produces drone bees and warrior bees. You see where I'm going with the analogy I make all the time. And it produces a sociopath that will pick up a sword and stab women and children to just lead the fuck out of humanity. And we needed that at one point. We needed barrel-chested, sick motherfuckers with blade weapons to just like go win this battle so the good guys could go on. But I would say that we're to a kinder, more evolved state mentally and as a society where those guys, those old white guys in suits that talk about grabbing pussies, it's time for them to go, man. Like, they've proven they don't work anymore. So we need the sociopaths that are buying 17-year-old girls over state lines to blow coke off their ass, and the sociopaths that are running these like institutions like the church that have systems in place to pay when the priests touch little boys. We just need these guys out of the fucking way so that a kinder society can move on. They're no longer needed.
I think that goes back to whenever I say in 10 years things get better. I think that time has shown that we're moving that way. We are moving that way. Politics change one death at a time. That's it. These old these old idiots, they die. And then there's new people to take their place. And you see, as it goes on, there's more people accepting of diversity. There's more and more people that question religion and like the institutions of them, which I don't have any problem with it. Religion, but just whenever the institutions of you have to believe it this way, and if you don't, then we disown you and you're awful and you're a horrible person. But to question that and say, is this actually correct? Is this how it should be? And it's America, it's been a little bit less than like Europe, for example, or some other countries, but there's still higher percentages, every year of people that say, well, is that exactly right, or is there other ways that we can look at this? That look at these institutions that have gone on for a long time and been like, it doesn't have to be this way.
Right.
So
I think that what's happening is that more of what I'll just call your average human person walking around, at least in America, staying inside the bounds of America so I can speak intelligently on it. I've traveled this country enough and lived in at least half of it where I could say, I think your average person walking around is starting to have better access to quality information. People are smart. They really are. And the reason that the world gets pumped full of Facebook and TikTok videos is partially because they are fun and they're cool to look at. But partially there's an agenda there trying to distract people because so much quality information's out. Now you can kind of look up what's bullshit. You can kind of find out if that pastor just bought a third jet and he was scamming the people on TV because they have kind hearts and they're going to send their money to this church. You can kind of get to the bottom of shit nowadays. You can kind of find out like what Monsanto's doing with fucking seed. You can kind of find out that maybe Tyson's not who we want representing America. Tyson Foods, I mean.
Yeah.
People are...
be Mike Tyson?
Mike Tyson can always represent America. He's an all-American story. I think that people are starting to care a little bit more because they're starting to see it affect them. One of the things that I see that in is I watch pardon me, my chair's going to hell on me here. I watch a lot of food documentaries, and one of them I watched was multiple families willing to participate because they were desperate. They were all fat and they didn't understand why. I mean, you just saw this mom who was working a career, coming home and cooking what she thought was healthy meals, and her whole family's fat and they couldn't figure out why. And they're starting to have health problems and that gets expensive fast. And, my heart really goes out to these people. Like, they really do, because our food supply is basically poisoned.
Yeah. I mean, it's all carbs and fat because it tastes good.
You can't buy anything they sell on the interior of a grocery store and feel good about it. So let me explain. Walk into your average grocery store, and up the outside is going to be produce.
Yeah, you got produce, meat,
dairy,
and dairy.
meat,
And
right?
in the middle is
Frozen.
all packaged. It's pastas, it's cereals.
It's fucking Pop-Tarts, bro.
Yeah.
It's breakfast cereal. It's garbage. Let's go down the aisle. Chips and crackers. It's just a bunch of cheap, we bleached the vitamins out of it flour, fried in hydrogenated oils. That's that whole shit. Okay, so now there was a drink aisle before that, by the way, which is all colored sugar water. We know it. Breakfast cereal, again, it's basically a cracker with cheese instead of salt, fried into a ball instead of a flat thing. Like, they just sell you the same food over and over again. I mean, Little Debbie snack is just a bunch of different colors of the same food Play-Doh. Every Little Debbie snack, let's just make it coconut flavored this time. It's, it's all the same garbage. If you want to know what's wrong with your body, question your food.
I've actually always wanted to have you're right. And I'm bad about I just eat crap, and I probably would feel a lot better if I just stopped doing that. I'm just so bad about, here's the thing. I just don't, it's like a thing where I just don't want to cook or eat anymore. I just don't care. So I'll do the fastest way to get the food in me. Those there's meal replacements you can get. They're not, but all of them are not true meal replacements. They're things where they're yeah, you can have a few of these, but you still have to eat. You'll have shakes where it's you could have 2 of these a day, but you should still eat food. It'll say meal replacement, but it's not true meal replacement. But if they do come out with one that just tastes reasonably okay, and it's got 3 flavors, and it's actually a product that will give you every nutrient you need, and you just drink it 2 to 3 times a day, I would do that. I like having a steak, or I like having a burger and fries every now and then, but I would prefer to be at least I can just eat this and know I get everything that I need to be a healthy person. But we don't have it yet.
You can right now. I take it every day of my life.
Actual meal replacement. You don't have to eat anything else.
Actual meal replacement.
See, everything I've seen for all of those is that they will tell you on their stuff, do not actually eat this all the time. You will eventually need something else.
Okay, so let me pose to you that if you take your average ass, inexpensive version, bottom shelf at Walmart protein powder, and you took that 3 times a day in place of whatever you eat before dinner, and then you just eat a rad dinner. I mean, cook yourself something decent. Don't make fucking pizza rolls, right? I would pose to you that in no world is whatever else you were eating better for you than those 3 protein shakes. It is leaps and bounds better for you to have consumed those than anything else you're going to list that you ate. So check this out. Here's what I don't understand that I never understood before 40. And I think I knew in I was always an athlete, and pharmaceuticals really got me sideways. But if someone came to you and said, I'll give you a drug, okay?
Yeah.
This drug has no downside if taken correctly. It's going to make you spring out of bed in the morning. It's going to make you leaner. It's going to make you gain more muscle. It's going to make you fuck better. It's going to make you sleep more easily. And it's going to make you sleep correctly and start that over tomorrow, wash, rinse, repeat.
That's healthy eating.
That's literally just food.
That's just food.
That's just food.
Yeah. I know that's what you were going for.
Yeah,
that's just healthy eating.
But let me pose this to you. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to lose that last couple pounds. I'm trying to do it now myself, right? It's real hard. You get down to those last whatever it is. I don't know anybody that wouldn't just like to lose some. Okay? We all want to. I don't know anybody that wouldn't like to fuck a little better, or just maybe get around to it a little more often because you're not so tired, or feel like you did a little better job. Let's be honest. I don't know anybody that wouldn't like to walk by a mirror and be like, this fits me better instead of worse. And I realize that your body is your body every minute of every day. Every person that looks at you, every time you're naked in front of your girlfriend, every time you go to do a physical activity, and there's only 2 things you can do to affect it. You're only made out of what you pour into it. And the only way to take those components and make them the best, sturdiest version is exercise. And nobody I know eats right or exercises.
Because it's willpower. You got to have the willpower to do it.
But the willpower to sleep better and fuck better doesn't sound that hard to come up with.
A lot of it's where they're I don't hate where I'm at right now. I just want a little bit more. But a little bit more does require a change of lifestyle. It is a change of lifestyle to just get a little bit more. So maybe they're thinking they can be yeah, like me, I'm a little overweight. I don't have a lot of energy, but I'm not really overweight, and I still have enough energy to get through the day.
I don't think you qualify as overweight, my man.
I do. Oh yeah, I do. I mean, I'm not, but whatever. But it's a thing where you sit there and you got to be well, but I still like, having a pizza, and I'm going to skip meals because I go to work and I'm like, I'm not going to go. Yeah, but there's a lifestyle change that's required.
The only change that's required, in my opinion, is that you have to pay attention to what you eat in a day, and it's as simple as a 69-cent notebook and a pen. Pay attention to it, because you can have pizza, but if you already had Pop-Tarts and pizza rolls and cake, when you have that pizza, you're going to be wearing it for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
But if you had 3 shakes today, eat a half a pizza. It's just calories in and calories out.
It's calories in, calories out. It absolutely is.
And it's exercise.
But it sucks when you reach the end of the night and you're like, I'm just really hungry. But you're at your calorie limit. And you're like, but I'm still hungry. And you're going to be like that, especially at first. It's usually that first gap, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's like, all I got to do is eat salads for a few weeks. That's easy. But when they start that, then they're like, why am I hungry? It's because your body's not accustomed to not taking in 4,000 calories in a day.
It's because people, myself included, are little bitches. And I didn't know that until recently, when I realized how much I whine, and that I was going through literal mood changes because of the dieting. And to be clear, I didn't say I'm going to diet. I didn't say, sorry, my throat's been killing me. My allergies.
We gotta actually wrap up.
Do we?
I mean, at this point, we've probably been talking for 2 hours. More than that, I think. 2.5 hours?
Yeah, we can wrap soon.
We could talk all night. If we're not paying attention, we'll be here 8 hours.
Yeah. What was I just saying to you, though?
Your diet changed, your mood.
Change. Yeah, so it wasn't that I said I'm a fat piece of shit, I'm going to diet. It's that I realized that I was eating a bunch of edible food-like substances.
Yeah.
That I wasn't eating good food. And I didn't say I'm going to diet, I'm garbage, I'm fat. I said I'm on a self-improvement kick. I'm going to try and be more optimal. I'm going to try. The goal is to be my most optimal self. And hey, I just realized that my body's only made up of what I give it every day. And wait a minute, I had cornflakes. Does that mean I'm made out of cornflakes? And I had all these questions, and I started looking into it, and it really pretty much is that simple.
Yeah.
If you pick up gummy fruit snacks and hold those up to your love handles, that's pretty much what they become. Those gummy fruit snacks, kind of. Calorie.
Your body, you shed all of your body in every 5 years or something. I don't know what it is. 13 years?
Not quite.
Things don't change. Enamel in your teeth isn't going to go away.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of your body does just get changed. When it gets replaced, cells die, new cells are created.
So guess what I found out recently? Just like we have this new RNA vaccine that's going on, which interacts with, and this is in my own words, and I am not a scientist, and this is only my own stupid monkey comprehension of it, but we have little DNA cleaning factories inside our body that unzip our DNA chains and zip them back. Just like when your zipper gets jammed up sometimes, you got to reset it on its track. And my understanding is that we have told those little RNA factories to now overcompensate for producing a protein which prevents this COVID-19 from latching onto us growing. That's my understanding. So, okay. So then I'm learning about these RNA things and these zipper factories and what they can do. So it turns out that our DNA is so intelligent, so gorgeously written, designed, whatever you want to call it, that it's got potentiality. Meaning it has crossroads. So if you reach a certain stage in your life and you are not taking care of your body, it makes a decision at that crossroad to give up certain future benefits. It goes, guess this asshole's just going to keep smoking 2 packs a day. And it literally makes the decision to kind of give up. And at some point, you really can't have the elasticity to come back from it. I think it was serendipitous that it happened to me at 40, because that's the halfway point, man, on this lifetime line. How am I going to live the rest of it? How many years of the rest of my life can I really stay in top physical condition? Not that many. So I'd like to have as many of them as I can. So I'm trying to get there and then maintain. And I looked at it and I realized in doing this reading, it's about this time in life. It's towards the halfway point and better on you if you could do it sooner, that you got to decide to set a trajectory for a better you, or your physical DNA is going to go, well, fuck this guy. I guess is the best he's going to be. And it's funny, Tommy, because here's where I think the mentality changes with the win versus the solo ride sports. Is this is how I judge myself now. Is before I get in a shower, maybe I'm all bloated because I ate a meal or something like that. But I think I think all of us look in a mirror before we get in the shower, and I'm looking for symmetry because I'm trying to learn about bodybuilding, and I try to do things accurately and optimally. And so I look at that first, but then I just look at how I'm doing. I mean, I really look like when no one else is there, when you're being honest, when you're not holding back. This is how I look, and I picture this snapshot in my head that if they took you right now, the honest you, and put you on a billboard for everybody to see, and it said, this is the best this guy could do, how would you feel about it? And I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, oh God, I'd be mortified. Like if the fucking world just saw me and I thought, okay, then do better. Because the world's never going to see me. It's that billboard in my mind. But if I'm not happy with it, how come I'm not fixing it? And then I realized you can take some advice from good old Matthew McConaughey. Just break a sweat an hour a day. Fucking pussy. We did it for all of human history. Would you just break a sweat an hour a goddamn day? And then I was like, yeah, how do I lie to myself about that? How do I bullshit myself? How do I go, well, I'm so busy that 1 hour a day would, and I just ran out of excuses, man. Yeah. And I feel so much better. The rest of my life has improved. Like I sit with better posture. I have less pain. I lift shit real easy. I take my trash out fucking two-handed. Like it was such a monumental change for me. I can't imagine not doing something this profound. And I would wager that it's the only religion that could guarantee results.
That's an interesting way to put it.
You come to this church enough and take communion enough times, get them subs, right? The healthy ones, the legal ones, the be good to you today ones. And you just put in the work, man. That's your Bible. Do them push-ups.
Got to get in there, the Iron Church.
Guarantee you feel better.
That's fair. No, I don't think it's wrong anyway. I think that's right. I think a lot of people just be like, well, I can do it tomorrow.
Everybody says I could do it tomorrow, and that's why you gotta sign up for the meme. You gotta get the shaker cup that says 0 days off, and just know that even though it's a fucking meme on Etsy,
yeah,
it is the Occam's razor most reduced version of the truth it can be. There are no days off. Just eat this. That's it, man. Like what I realized this recently, and I started to tell the story. I told part of it of walking out here not feeling good on Dolce Friday. I just realized, in what universe do I have the time on my hands? Time being what I always complain about not having enough of, to produce all these wonderful ideas I care so much about. In what world do I have time to not feel my best and be thinking with my mind in its best space to be optimal, to render usable decisions? When do I have time to be off? I don't. So what does that mean? That means I got to get up in the morning and I got to do the hard things. I got to take the protein shake that isn't as fun as bacon and eggs, but I don't want to walk around with love handles and feel like garbage. Just drink your fucking shake. And it's so hard, Tommy. It is so hard to just like get on yourself and do it. And then I catch myself eating bacon and eggs and I'm like, you fucking vagina. Like, you little baby, you couldn't just drink a goddamn shake. Oh, you have to have your bacon and egg for your little tom-tom. You know what I mean? And then I just picture all those motherfuckers going through a drive-through, dead in their souls, and like, yeah, let me get like 8 of those bacon cruncho cheese croissants.
Oh, I want that. That sounds good.
Dog, you're killing yourself. Yeah. Like, literally, you're murdering yourself. And I had a friend from my magic group that dropped dead. Gravy drinking motherfucker. I loved him, but like, no, I don't think he deserved to die, but the way he treated his body, it deserved to fail him. And the thing is I think that a lot of my friends think like, oh, 70. Nah, bro, I'm talking 30. Like,
right.
Dude, I talked to my sales rep, Dave, recently. He's a good friend of mine too. And he told me that his friend's 35, I think he told me 35, 38-year-old daughter found dead of a heart attack. Just fucking dropped dead, 38. Just didn't take care of herself. I didn't want that to be me, man. That sounds suboptimal.
Some people will say the same because they'll be like, yeah, I mean, I could do it, but a brain aneurysm could hit me any moment. You can't plan for that. Can't be a better body for that one, But I would argue that the healthier your body is, the less likely you are for anything else. It's possible. But it's like you can't, driving down the road, guy just hits you.
No, I agree with that too, man. So let me ask, meaning of life, because I know you're not a religious guy. Like real life stuff. You think there's any point to any of this?
No.
Any at all?
No.
Any reason we're here?
No.
None at all.
None. I think all we're here to do is just enjoy the life that we have, and that's it. And some people, I mean, some people will think that religion's important to have morals, to be like, that way you can make sure other people can be safe. But I mean, I think that, you know, some people like me, it's just more about, I want to enjoy my life. But a big part of that too is I want to have people I enjoy being around and enjoy their life. And I want as many people to be happy as possible. You got to find your own meaning to the life that you have. And it's honestly, even if there is any other meaning, that doesn't matter. What matters is the meaning that you attribute to your life. That's it.
I do think that it's very important, whether it is true or not, for religion to have existed to this point, just like I talked about brawny men with swords and armies, right? Men with swords. I think that we needed the sociopathic politician, just like we needed the brawny men with swords to run armies. And I think in today's world, we need a different type of human.
Yeah.
You know, I really do. In terms of the the religion affecting politics, essentially, is why it's still around. I think that in today's world, you have to make an argument that whether you believe that God is real and Catholic priests are the only route to them and that you got to do all that garbage, whether you believe that or not, you have to understand that the Catholic Church is a superpower, that it's its own fucking country. And so as a reasonable human, you have to wonder if people in the positions of power over that country wouldn't keep certain things going just to stay in power, like we know is traditionally done across all nations at all points in history. So I really think that people need to question those systems, and I feel like some are, but I feel like it was a necessary step again in the human evolution, because like space and time are one word, space-time, humanity and society don't evolve separately in a vacuum. They're not mutually exclusive. And so the evolution of society was, we needed people to be scared of something they couldn't see so that they would just act right, so 100%. That we could just fucking move on.
Yeah.
Okay. But now we're to a point where I'm like, look, religion, improve the world or get out of the way, because we're going to lose the human race to bombs and witchcraft. Like, we are still waging wars over fables, and I can prove it in one sentence. You might be talking, you fighting a war against him, might be talking to the one true God who created all of this, and I'm a terrible sinner, I'm going to go to hell. But that guy's also fighting a war, and if you're right, he's fighting a war because his imaginary friend told him to. Now, most of the big religions have somebody that we can't see telling them what to do. And they're doing things like firing rockets into communities in Palestine and Israel. You're fighting a war with bombs over witchcraft and fables, any way you slice it. Because if one of you's talking to God, the other one, bombs because of witchcraft and fables.
Yeah.
What the fuck? It's 2021 and babies are getting blown up on CNN because of witchcraft and fables.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. Like, it was at one point useful because people had kings had to be like, shit, how do I get these peasants to stop killing each other? Because if it doesn't matter, why wouldn't they? And it's like, oh, you say if you do that, you'll go to this eternal hell. And then they'll be like, well, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. Because even if I'm having fun here, then it's going to be a bad deal later. But nowadays, if these guys are like, this is exactly what you're talking about. Whenever it's like, we're right and you're wrong, so you must be having an imaginary friend. But doesn't that by nature of its very being just make you have to question yourself too?
Yeah.
Like, how am I so sure that all these other people are wrong, but I'm right? Anyway, I think that's a good note to end it on, because I got to go home and have some McDonald's, then feed my cat.
And that is a good note.
It's very important.
Tommy, thanks for coming out, brother.
Dude, it was great being here, and I hope to be here again and record some more. And hopefully this doesn't turn out to be a unlistenable mess, which it probably is, but that's what's fun about it.
We'll figure it out. We're going to watch it in post. So,
all right. I love you,
Tommy,
man.
Thank you, brother.
It was good being here. I'll catch you next time.
Thanks, man.
All right.